Oh my God. Oh my God.
Hello, folks, and welcome back. Star Wars The Bear Awakens podcast. We're talking episode 10, End of the Skywalkers, part 2. And Palpatine finally dying. I know I've talked to you about this. I'm going to spread it out there because I honestly believe he's not dead. I am going to go until they completely close it off
What do you
and
think?
eliminate
They're going to put
him.
him in another Snoke? Or?
I think that old lady at the end of the movie is going to come back and become something next movie. I think if they connect anything to this,
you think that he's going to do like some spiritualists will say as a walk-in, have such traumatic experiences that another entity or human soul will actually come in and take over the body
and take it over and start creating the action. Yes, with that concept in mind, we'll call it a layover. When you get into the body compared to when you really have a conscious awareness of being in the body, then being able to control the body. It's not like it's going to just jump in and there you go. It's kind of like they stumble, they fumble, they have a hard time getting to the point where they really understand what just happened. Think about it like the rebirthing. If we're karmatically coming back to this earth, we die, we go into the presence of God or the spirit world or wherever, and then we're sent back. We have an opportunity to come back, and we come back and we go inside a womb and we become this baby. As soon as you come out into the womb and you're introduced to the human form, you don't remember anything that you just went through for the last 10 lives.
Yeah, but she's an older gal, so you're trying to say that Palpatine...
He probably just found the only thing he could find. It wasn't like he was going to select a child.
Wasn't it funny that it was on Tatooine?
It was just coincidental. That's why I'm saying I got a strange feeling that is not the end of him. Because in that scene where Rey was crossing the sabers and shoving the Force lightning back at Palpatine, he starts deteriorating. But before that happened, he said...
You don't see him explode into many
That's right.
pieces.
You don't see his human form be completely destroyed. You see it being taken apart. But there's a flash. In that flash, they change the camera angle. There's no remnants. There's nothing. It's just a bolt of lightning in the middle. There's no explosion of his human form that dissipated anywhere. Because he wasn't 100% pulled away from the Force lightning. You know, it was chewing away at him, but he wasn't done. There were still bones to do. There were still, like, intestines and physical parts that were still in.
Right.
And when they switched the scene, all of a sudden, boom, you hear this crack and lightning right in front of Rey, and there's nothing. There's no Palpatine. And before he had her do that, he said, "You kill me, strike me down."
Out of anger, because he was professing to everybody, if you did it out of anger, and she did not kill him out of anger, it was survival.
Right. So my point is, did Darth Vader kill him out of anger, or did he kill him to save his son? Did he use anger to kill him? Right?
No.
Was he purely in a good mode? Save my son. He did not kill him in anger. That was why he switched over and faded away into the living Force.
Okay.
So Palpatine was killed not by anger. He was killed by someone protecting.
Okay, which would have meant that Rey should have just disappeared.
That's right. Rey should have disappeared when she died. Again, there could be some potential plot flaws.
I don't care. I think I loved it anyway.
But I like the concept. So I mentioned to you, we watched the movie again last night. I mentioned to you, I was like, pay attention to Rey's staff. Pay attention to her staff. Pay attention to her staff. Incredible. She actually used her staff as her lightsaber. The end of her staff had the lightsaber handle.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it again, feel free to do that. But if you watch and look at that staff completely, take a look at pictures online, whatever, you'll see that her handle for her lightsaber is that staff, which, if you look even closer to it, it appears to have double ends.
Yep.
If you catch that last scene where she finally lights up her lightsaber, you can see the bottom just barely. They just barely get a little visual of the bottom, and it looks exactly like the top.
Yep.
So I'm assuming she's going to break out the double lightsaber, if she's going to exist in anything from this point on. They might do a Disney Plus
with her
series.
Golden
saber.
Amazing?
That would be pretty cool.
Wait a minute. So,
but
okay.
Remember the dark Rey, the split double-bladed lightsaber that closed on her lightsaber.
Yeah.
It was a horseshoe. So she was doing double-bladed lightsaber, and then she got Rey into a moment. Her lightsaber folded to capture Rey's lightsaber. Did you catch that?
Like a nunchuck.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Rey seeking the living Force to stop Palpatine. This is where I really, out of all of the movies, this is where I really believe that the writers for this, working with George Lucas, said this is a good place to step in and throw a little bit of God moment in there. And I know I'm taking it as that, and that's good because I want to.
Exactly.
When she was hearing the Jedi speak to her, that was really, I mean, I kind of got emotional with it as usual with every time I saw it. Hearing them talk to her, what was her question before? You know, it was the one where she was meditating with Leia sitting in her force.
Well,
with
she
the
kept
rocks.
saying, "Be with me.
Be with me. Be with me." What is it that people looking for God's help?
Be with
the
me.
Angels, Archangel Michael, be with me. You know, you name it.
Isn't that our
Peter,
prayers?
be with me. Anybody, be with me. We're constantly asking, be with me. And she was saying, be with me, be with me. She was counting on the angels or the living force, Jedi, to be with her, to counterbalance the evil that she was exposed to. So when she was saying that, you know, be with me, and then as she's lying down on her back and Palpatine's doing the electric thing, she's the electric slide, right? She's looking up at the heavens or at the stars, and she's focusing on it, and then all of a sudden you see her start going to it. Right? In our understanding of the human and how we were created through the separation of God, and we created the universe, and then we created the planet, and all these things just to keep us further away from God.
She was reversing.
She was basically starting to take that path without having to die yet, right?
Yeah.
Because how can we get to universal connectedness? By getting out of the human body first, right? We have to take steps to get back to God. Okay? She was taking a step to get to the living force. She was taking a step right there in her living conscious mind, not at death in life. She chose to go to the living force and connect with it.
And be with me.
And that's what Leia was trying to teach her. Because Luke was getting it from Yoda, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Luke was training Leia. Leia was training Rey. There is a way to connect to the living force. Ask him to be with you. So she does that, and then the visual has her going past the lightning and into the outer space. And everybody's telling her, we're with you. And then the final thing is Luke saying, Rey, the Force will be with you always.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So that was pretty deep in my mind.
I love that.
Okay? Now the next question is, now that this is supposedly sealing it for the Skywalker family, and for this, we're getting rid of the old people out of our fandom, we're going to bring in the new people.
Yeah.
What would you like? What would you like to see as something coming next? Now, we know some things already, but what would you like? What would be the heart of heart out of all of Star Wars? What would you want to see?
Okay, for me, you know, I love Ahsoka.
Yep.
So I would love to see something with Ahsoka. I'd love to see Ezra, and what happened with Ezra and Thrawn.
Yep.
They took off at the, you know, speed of light and that...
Hyperspace whales.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty cool. But, you know, also what would be cool, I think, and although we don't have Leia anymore, it would be nice to see what happened to Leia. You know, she teaches Rey how to be...
Oh, you want to
be
see?
with me. I
You want to see Leia get the
I want to see where
lightsaber thing.
she comes into it, because then he shows us Luke is, you know, reflecting back through memories and, you know, telling Rey, here's, you know, Leia's lightsaber. Not ever have we known that she had used the Force.
we did.
When Luke and Darth Vader, you know, had their little moment, and then his hand was cut off, and he decided he would rather
fall into the abyss than to join Vader.
forces, and
then that's right, when Luke was hanging,
she could sense it.
and he said, Leia. Right, that's good. That's right. That was the first one. Good call. Nice, you one-upped me on that. So you'd be interested in seeing the Leia or the Ahsoka concept?
Yeah.
So for me,
Sabine. I mean,
that would be pretty cool.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's
we
what
got
they're
the Mandalorians. What happened to Sabine?
They're expecting to have that happen. They're expecting for the Rebels season. They're bringing the Rebels back, and they're going to be taking it from that point where Sabine and Ahsoka go looking for Ezra. So we're going to get that filled in.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm really jacked up about that. One of the things that I would really, and this is kind of interesting because you could probably talk to all the women Star Wars fans and all the men Star Wars fans. I'll bet you 80% of all the men Star Wars fans will say they want to go to the Old Republic and see how everything started. And the women will say, I want to see Ahsoka. I want to see Padme. I want to see Leia. I want to see, you know, some of these female characters that were just sides. They were just sides in a lot of the main movies, but they became parts in the Clone Wars. To be able to see that a little bit would be really cool. So I'm a Old Republic fan. I want to see Darth Bane. I want to see them come out with a Darth Bane thing. I mean, for me, he was the one with probably the saddest story. It's probably because I read the novel a couple of times and it really connected with me, you know? His father was abusive, like deeply abusive. And they went into detail about how much his father was abusive and how ugly he was to him as a child. The only thing that he knew was to lash out in anger. That's exactly how I felt growing up as a child. Through my parents' divorce, I started hating my dad, and I would use that as my driving force for a lot of my physical activity. I was into sports, so for me it was like, you know, mess with the bull, you're going to get the horns, and I would be like that. I mean, I was a very physical athlete, among other things.
Competitive?
But yeah. not just competitive, but ultra competitive. It was do or die. And if it didn't happen, it would be unforgivable to myself.
You took it to heart.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I ate that. And I took that instead of having the anger outward, into certain people. I took my hatred or my emotional state. I still fought a lot, but yeah, I guess I did that too. That was my connection with Darth Bane. It's feeling that pain of having a dad and not having a dad anyway. And then when the divorce happened, then it was like, wow, really? That was your fault? That was the way I was thinking back then. So for me, it was a very good connection with Darth Bane and his struggles and his terrible childhood. And he never had a chance to mature in any way. So he just went to the dark side and it filled his needs. And he was just the dominant force in the universe. And the rule of two.
You said he was the one that made the rule of two.
He's the guy that looked at the Sith and said, you guys are a bunch of idiots. What is your problem? You guys are all fighting each other. It's like, don't you understand where the enemy is? It's not us. He says, you. You guys are now your own enemies. You're killing yourselves off when we should be focusing elsewhere. So it was kind of neat to be able to see that. I mean, I read that novel and I didn't look at it like he was doing bad. I was looking at it like somebody who found a purpose. And his purpose was to change the world. Or in this case, the galaxy. Mm-hmm. Right? And, now I can look at it a little differently. But in his ways and the way they wrote the book, you felt for the guy. You'd walk the walk with him and you go, man, I can get it. I understand why he's doing that. It's not pure Sith, the Sith all about the one. He actually had compassion, otherwise he would have never had his apprentice. His apprentice was a little girl that he found on a planet and saved her and all this stuff. So it was a compassion that brought him to figure out the rule of two is the most important. And to minimize the, too many chiefs, not enough Indians concept. Yeah. Everybody wants to say something and everybody thinks they know the answer, but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work best that way in that case. So anyway, that's a long version of what I was looking for. So the last part is we talk about it in all of our podcasts when we're talking together. I think everybody catches this is that I think Laura Lee and I both have bonded a little bit differently as Star Wars fans than most Star Wars fans would because we are looking through the animation and the special effects and we're going into the heart of each character. We're looking at the soul and why is it that people are the way they are. If we look back at the history of Palpatine, he was an abused person as well. He had a terrible childhood. So that created his anger and hate as well, right? You could probably go back and pick and choose anybody in any of the paths. Any character that we've seen. Jar Jar Binks, as much as I'm irritated by that character, he's just a goofball that's just kind of, he had no direction. No direction. Mm-hmm. And so as he's being put into these positions, like we saw during the Clone Wars, and they were like, hey, let's have Jar Jar do this. It's like, we're going, what? Something bad's coming. Something bad's coming.
Wasn't it perfect for Palpatine's
plan?
The whole plan.
To have Jar Jar just kind of step up and do certain things at certain times.
Yeah, instead of Padme, because Padme wouldn't have gone for it.
She wouldn't have been quite easily swayed. Mm-hmm. So again, everything we got to see.
To give him complete power?
Yeah, we need to give Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, all the power. And everybody's going, oh, if Jar Jar's saying it,
then
let's do it.
Power to Palpatine.
Yeah, so we see a little bit more of the consciousness, the God playing into the Star Wars than just watching it for the Star Wars. But we are true fans of it as well. I know I am a deep fan of Star Wars, and these last three have only solidified it. I don't care if people think the first two prior to this one was junk or not.
I love it.
I saw deeper than what the plots were showing the average fan or the average viewer. It showed humanity. Yes.
Is what it showed. It opened up the doors. I mean, you're looking at Finn. I love Finn.
Not just humanity, but the humanity style. The consciousness of all. Not people. The one, but the all. Mm-hmm. And what were you going to say about Finn?
Well, when you look at Finn, which is really cool to even get into, because Finn himself is a stormtrooper, and there's something in him that just can't pull the trigger. It's like he's all of a sudden saw blood, something feels wrong. Dynamically, he's conflicted really quickly. Right, and he goes from an ultra supreme power to wanting to be individualized and out. He just wants out. He's so scared he doesn't even know what direction. And luckily, he comes across Poe, right? What a perfect out for this.
Absolutely.
Helps him off the starship.
And then who else does he get to stumble across?
Then he comes across Rey. But how cool is that? And throughout the movie, they've shown different dynamics of feelers. The kids on that one planet where they had all the gambling going on.
All right, they were running those horses, the horse races and all that.
they were wanting to hurry up and get the key maker, or what is it called? The
Code breaker.
Code breaker.
Yep.
There were just so many dynamics when you see that so many people, so many of us actually have intense feelings. We can feel things. Some people, we call them psychics.
Some intuits.
Some
Sensitives.
intuitives and, sensitive. It just showed a broad range of us.
Beings.
Yeah.
And how do we...
And we find the similarities. The cool thing is when they bring these movies together, they're showing not so much, and yes, the individual, but they're showing the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're not so different, even though we may be different species, right? On planet Earth, we're all the same species, and we can't even get along.
Yeah. So remember this really important quote Landau said on the last movie. When Poe is asking Leia as she's dead, how did you do this? How did you guys go everyone against nothing? And then Landau said, together.
We had each other. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And Bear gets all choked up. He kind of likes this stuff.
Yeah, I become a mushy bear. So that hits me differently than it would have 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many tiny things in all of these movies that if you watch it for what you're trying to get out of it, you'll get it. You get those moments where even the weirdest character can bring you to the deepest part of this understanding. It's kind of like how silly and ridiculous Jar Jar really was, but the innocence, the child innocence. It was Yoda that mentioned Jar Jar's innocence is childlike innocence. And every time you saw Jar Jar getting into trouble, he got out of trouble. And something good happened. Yeah. So it just meant that he had the heart. He had a heart to be able to say, I may be an idiot and nobody may respect me, but I'm going to do my best. And he just had a heart. And how many of us see that every day around us with people?
George Lucas, that became his favorite character?
It probably was. I mean, I haven't heard anything that he said the reasons exactly why Jar Jar is his favorite. I'll probably have to research that now that I think about it. It's possible. It's possible that it's the underdog. He saw him as himself. Mm-hmm. That's what he saw.
Right. The man that couldn't pull it all together, but yet he did.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you go back into the history of what George Lucas had to do in order to get the first movie done, I mean, there was no money. He made no money off that first movie. Even out of all the people that went to see that movie. Because of what he did, his desire to just do it and not worry about where the money is. He said, it's got to come out.
And it did.
And it did. And it went gangbusters, and then for back then it was like insane. It's still one of the, top 10 most tickets sold? Something like that?
Is it?
Not the most grossing, because the price of tickets are different than they were back then. It was like $2, $2.75 a ticket back then.
I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, I barely remember too. No pun intended. But yeah. So anyway, that's our podcast for today, guys. Thank you for being a part of this. We're going to continue on. Just because the trilogies are done doesn't mean we're stopping, because this is beautiful. This is about the consciousness, and Star Wars and the Force is different. It doesn't have to be just a special effects. It can be something a lot deeper. And if you're lucky enough, like I am, you'd stumble across somebody as wonderful as Laura Lee, and you might be able to share this depth, not just through movie watching, but just through life, and being able to walk together with somebody that's really cool. So thank you very much, folks. We look forward to hearing from you. Check out the next podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Always.
Oh my God.